Welcome to Story Voyage, where the most shocking and intriguing tales come to life. Today's story will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about loyalty and trust. Let's dive into this unbelievable journey inspired by true events. I never imagined I'd be sharing my story with strangers online, but here we are. My name is Michael, and until recently, I was married to a woman named Celeste. We'd been together for 7 years, married for 5, and on the surface, everything seemed fine, or at least that's what I thought. But as it turns out, the one who saw through the cracks in our marriage wasn't me. It was our golden retriever, Max. Max has been with me since before I met Celeste. He's my buddy, my shadow, and, as it turns out, the one who uncovered her betrayal. This story is as surreal to me as it probably sounds to you, but every word of it is true. It all started a month ago. Max and I have a nightly ritual of walking the wooded trail behind our house. It's his favorite part of the day. He loves running off leash, sniffing every bush, and occasionally chasing a squirrel or two. He always stays within earshot, though, and comes bounding back when I call. One evening, about halfway through our walk, Max suddenly darted into the underbrush. At first, I thought he'd spotted a rabbit or another dog, but when he didn't come back, after a minute or two, I called him. Nothing. I walked toward where I'd last seen him, calling his name louder. That's when I heard him barking, a strange, excited bark that wasn't his usual "I found something interesting" tone. When I reached him, I found Max digging furiously at the ground. Like, at first I thought he'd found some animal bro, but when I got closer, I saw he'd unearthed something. I crouched down and pulled it out. A crumpled piece of clothing. It was dirty and smelled faintly of sweat and cheap cologne. It took me a moment to recognize it. It was a hoodie, a black one that looked eerily familiar. And then it hit me. It was mine. Or at least it had been mine before it mysteriously disappeared months ago. I remember asking Celeste about it back then, and she said she hadn't seen it. Holding the hoodie now, my stomach turned. Why was it here in the middle of the woods, reeking of someone else's cologne? Max wasn't done. While I stood there confused and uneasy, he continued sniffing the area and started pawing at something else. I brushed aside some leaves and found a receipt, faded but legible. It was from a local motel, dated just a week earlier. The receipt listed a room charge, 2 glasses of wine, and dinner for 2. My heart sank. I knew Celeste had claimed to be working late that night. The walk back home was a blur. Max trotted happily by my side, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. When I got home, I hid the hoodie and receipt in my desk drawer and tried to act normal. Celeste was in the kitchen, cooking dinner, humming to herself. For the first time, her smile didn't feel comforting. It felt like a mask. Over the next few days, I tried to gather more evidence. I casually asked Celeste if she'd seen my old black hoodie, the one Max found. She barely looked up from her phone as she said no, but I caught a flicker of something in her expression. Panic? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind. Around 2 a.m., I got up and went to my desk, pulling out the receipt again. My hands trembled as I Googled the motel's name. It wasn't far, just a 20-minute drive from our house. The next day, I returned to the trail with Max. I was determined to see if there was more. Sure enough, Max led me to another spot about 10 feet away. This time, he uncovered a pair of sunglasses and a bracelet. a delicate silver one I recognized immediately. I'd given it to Celeste for our anniversary 2 years ago. That night, while Celeste was in the shower, I checked her phone. She'd always been cautious about her messages, but I noticed she'd recently downloaded a new app, one I didn't recognize. It required a password, and I couldn't get in. I decided to confront her, but first I needed more proof. The following weekend, Celeste said she was meeting friends for brunch. As soon as she left, I drove to the motel. I approached the front desk, pretending I'd left something in one of their rooms and asked if they could check their records. The clerk hesitated at first, but after slipping him a $50, he pulled up the information. Sure enough, Celeste had been there, checked in under her name with another guest, someone named Alex. I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity trying to process everything. My wife, the woman I'd built my life with, had been lying to me. I felt anger, betrayal, and a strange kind of relief all at once. Relief that I wasn't crazy, that the doubts gnawing at me weren't unfounded. When Celeste came home later that day, I was waiting for her in the living room. Max sat beside me, his tail wagging, oblivious to the tension in the air. I laid everything out, the hoodie, the receipt, the bracelet. At first, she denied it. Her face turned pale, and she stammered, "Alex, as you didn't." But when I mentioned Alex and the motel, she crumbled. She confessed. It had been going on for months, she said. And she claimed she felt neglected, that Alex made her feel wanted. I didn't care about her justifications. All I could think about was how she'd betrayed not just me, but the life we'd built together. I packed a bag that night and left. Max and I are staying at my brother's place while I figure out my next steps. The divorce papers are already in motion. Looking back, it's ironic. People always say dogs are loyal, but I never realized just how true that was until Max uncovered the truth. He's been my rock through all of this, and I don't know what I'd do without him. It's just one thing I've learned. It's sometimes the best detectives and the ones in movies, they're the ones wagging their tails at your side. Thank you for joining us on this emotional roller coaster. If you enjoyed this story or it resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more captivating stories here on Story Voyage. Until next time, take care and keep exploring life's mysteries.